We're holding Chavtesim at base. It's 29b. Yeah, 29b. We're holding by Tanya. Amar Rabbi Yosi. That's it's about 11 lines or something from the top. Okay, we thank Hashem to be able to learn Torah every day. It's chassav learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Also, summer's coming up. I have a summer kaila. Anyone wants to participate in the sponsorship, Connect Torah and Tzedakah. What do we have before? Medino Matzla. Remember, Torah protects from Gashmias and Baruchnias. Okay. Torah in a Brisa. Amar Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi says, Minayin l'Ravi b'Kodesh Apostle. How do we know that? See, we have an avatuma, that's the person that touches the corpse, or that's the sheretz, and then we have a rishon l'tuma, that would be the person that touches the sheretz. Then we have a sheni, that's the food that touches the rishon.
It's only deraisa.
So far, it's deraisa. Yeah.
Rishon and sheni.
The rishon and sheni would be deraisa.
Rishon.
Rishon sheni. Then we have a shlishi for truma, which seems to be also a deraisa. Seems so. Then we have a revi for kodesh. Now everything stopped at the sheni for chulin. Only with rishon sheni, that's chulin. For kodesh it continues to a shlishi. For truma it's a shlishi, and for kodesh it's a revi. So Rabbi Yosi says, how do you know that there's a review by Kodesh Pasul? Pasul, the term Pasul, we learned before, means that it does not continue on to anything else. Tameh means that not only does it become Tameh, but it can make Tameh. And Pasul means that it just stops there. So how do we know that it becomes Tameh, that it becomes Pasul?
A long time ago, I saw it says shlishi with a vein. How far does it go?
Interesting. That'd be Truma and Kacha. Very nice. Okay. So Rabbi Yosi says he has a Kal V'chaimer. V'dinhu. It's a Kal V'chaimer. Kal V'chaimer is like this. Ma mechusar kippurim shemata b'truma pasal b'kodesh. Mechusar kippurim is someone that was tamei. And it's a type of tumah that you need to bring a sacrifice when you're done. So let's say it was a zav that saw 3 times, or a zava. So what they do is they go to the mikveh on the 7th day, and that night they become pure. And the following day they need to bring a korban, and until they bring that korban, they're not allowed to eat kachim, eat from a sacrifice, or touch a sacrifice. Now, but such a person, he was for chulin, he had no problem because he already went to the mikveh before. So when it comes to a mechusar kippurim, he's allowed to eat truma. He's allowed to eat chulin. He's allowed to eat truma. The only thing that he's not allowed to be in contact with is kodesh, which means a sacrifice. So shlishi, shepasal b'truma, eni din sheyaser revi b'kodesh. If a mechusar kippurim can contaminate kodesh, even though it's allowed to have truma. So someone that's not allowed to have truma for sure should contaminate kodesh. Who's not allowed to have truma? Well, who's tamei for truma? That would be a shlishi. A shlishi is tamei for truma. So if a mechusar kippurim that's acceptable to eat truma can contaminate kodesh, so a shlishi for truma, a shlishi of truma which is pasul, for sure should contaminate kodesh, which means a revi. That's his logic. Follow. We're taking if the weaker one can contaminate.
So
well, yeah, sort of. But if the mechusar kippurim, which is the weaker one, can contaminate kodesh, so for sure a shlishi, which contaminated truma, for sure should contaminate kodesh. The mechusar kippurim doesn't contaminate. Okay. Now, all of this is based on the premise that there's a shlishi for truma. We know that there's a shlishi for kodesh min haTorah, and revi mikal v'chaymer. We know that there's a revi from mikal v'chaymer. Now, shlishi lakodesh min haTorah.
Go for it. Happy Friday.
Yes, he brought some, what is it called? Cinnamon buns. Okay. What we did skip over here is that shlishi for truma min haTorah. The Gemara jumps right to shlishi lakodesh min haTorah. Okay. Shlishi lakodesh min haTorah. Now the Gemara asks a question. Shlishi lakodesh min haTorah minol. How do we know that there is a shlishi? We got a kal v'chaymer for a revi, but the kal v'chaymer is based on that there's a shlishi as well. How do you know that there's a shlishi? Means a third level. How do you know that there's a third level? Well, it says the ksiv, the pasuk says, "V'habasar asher yiga b'chol tamei lo yachal." The meat, the flesh that touches something that's tamei should not be eaten. We're talking about a sacrifice over here. But the meat of a shlamim sacrifice that touches anything that's tamei. Now, what is anything that's tamei? What could be tamei?
Is this something that's in the second degree?
Yeah, we're talking about very good. We're talking about something that's the second degree. So tamei could be a second degree. It could be a first degree or second degree that could be considered tamei. So if something touches a second degree, the flesh touches the second degree, it becomes tamei. Are we not talking about that it touched the second degree? And the Torah says that you can't eat it. That means that there's a shlishi. And the fourth level is the way we said it already, that there's a kal v'chaymer from Mechusar Kippurim. Could be, but the fact that it could be a sheni, and it says a bas, so that touches anything that's tamei, we would take it to a shlishi. So that means that there is a concept of a shlish, there is a third degree. And once I have a third degree, then I can continue with my kal v'chaymer to make a fourth degree. Kal v'chaymer from Mechusar Kippurim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, all of this is a statement of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, he's a student of Rabbi Akiva, and he's telling us that there's a concept of a fourth level of tumah by a fourth degree of tumah by kodesh, by a sacrifice. There's a very important sefer called Mapa Satara, and it was written by, I don't know if it came from the Meiri, it's from maybe it was written by the Meiri. But anyway, in this publication of the Sefer, the Eshkol publication, Eshkol.
Yeah,
so, not Levi Eshkol. He's a Lubavitcher, I think. The person, Weinfeld is his name. One of them, there's two brothers. One of them was a Vishnitzer, one's a Lubavitcher. So they have in front of it Baskamas from like the. Anyway, in this sefer, there's a letter from the Rebbe, and it says he's commenting. The Rebbe is commenting on the sefer that he sent him, and they made a chart of the different tumah, how far it goes. And the Rebbe commented that there's a third level for truma, there's a fourth level for kodesh, and there's a fifth level for para aduma. That's what it says on the chart. The Rebbe's comment was not only is there a fifth level, but it continues on. For 6, 7, by paraduma, there's no end. So the Rebbe's comment was, when you make a chart, you have to make sure that says, because the chart is like the visual, that really has to be there. It continues even after a fifth, I think. Yeah, I think that was the comment. If you come across the sefer,
long chart.
Yeah, it's a long chart. It goes on forever. If you come across the sefer, you open up to the back. I think there was a chart in it.
And Reb Natal, you have that sefer and you read it, right?
Okay.
I heard that, Yitzi.
Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says about this, what Rabbi Yossi says that there's the Ravi. He says, Tam Berivi Ena Yedei Mahu. Berivi is the great one. Says the reason of the great one, Rabbi Yossi, I don't get. Because Shaharei Chuvasi B'tzidei. Because there's a problem with the Kal V'chaimer. There's a direct problem. What is a direct problem? It says like this. The Kal V'chaimer was based on that if something that doesn't contaminate Truma can contaminate Kodesh, which is Mechusa Kippurim. So for sure, something that contaminates Truma, which is the Shlishi, which is apostle for Truma, for sure should contaminate a Kodesh, which is a Revi.
We just usually there isn't like a third category, but we just made that exception just for Truma, Karbanos, things like that, just because that's a special category.
Right, it's more sensitive. Truma is more sensitive, so it can reach a third level. And sacrifices are even more sensitive, it can reach a fourth level. You have to imagine like this. Let's say you have a cloth that's stained, all right? So it touches another cloth, the stain will go to that one. So it's no good. You take that one and you touch another one. Will the stain continue? So now it's already depends how sensitive it is. So right, that's what we're talking about. So it really would only go to the second level by chulin. But Truma is so sensitive, it will go to the next level, and Kodesh is even more sensitive. The fourth level will still become tam. Okay, it's a mashal. Not talking about stains, we're talking about tuma. So sharit shuvasi b'tzidei oichal abba machmas tvul yom yechiach. Problem is that let's say a tvul yom. Tvul yom is someone that went to the mikveh because he was tamei, and he has to wait for the evening. What is he allowed to do then? Well, shepasal b'truma, first Mishnah in Shas, right? When is he allowed to? When is a kohen allowed to eat? When is time for shema? When a kohen is allowed to eat his truma, which is nightfall. Goes to the mikveh and he waits for nightfall. He's not allowed to eat truma until then. However, ve'ina isir v'bakaydash. He's not allowed to eat truma, but he doesn't create a revi'i for if he touches something that won't create a revi'i for kodesh. We're going to see exactly how this works in the following brisa that we're going to quote. The Tanya, we have a brisa. Okay, we'll see. The first opinion of the brisa is not going to say what we just said. It's going to be a later opinion here. It's going to be a Reb Meir and the Chachamim. The first opinion is Abba Shol. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Abba Shol says, "Tvul yom tchila lakodesh." L'tamei shnayim v'lifsel echad. The Tvul Yom is considered a rishon. What is the status of the Tvul Yom? The Tvul Yom, he went to the mikvah already, and his only issue is not for chulin. His only issue is for truma. But what level? How many levels of truma can he create? So we say that the Tvul Yom himself is a rishon. So if he touches something, that's going to be a sheni. If that touches something, it will be a shlishi. And if that touches something else, it will be a revi. So Abba Shol says, Tvul Yom tchila lakodesh. Tchila means that he's actually a rishon. When it comes to a karban, he's considered a rishon. What he touches, latame shnayim. What he touches becomes tameh. To touch something else that becomes tameh. V'lifsel echad, and the revi will only be possible. Well, that's where it's going to end. That's the opinion of Abba Shol. Reb Meir says, "Metami echad or paisel echad." A Tvul Yom is not considered a rishon. Tvul Yom went to the mikvah already. He's considered a sheni. So if he touches a sacrifice, it's going to contaminate the first thing that he touches. It's going to be a shlishi, and it's going to invalidate. Contaminate is tameh. Invalidate will be pasul. It's going to invalidate the one thing. Contaminate one thing, which can invalidate one more thing. Chacham say, they say that the Tvul Yom is only what he contaminates. Just like a Tvul Yom, according to Reb Meir. Tvul Yom is considered a sheni. If he touches one thing, it invalidates it, and that's the end. for truma, right? For kodesh, Reb Meir held that it can go one more step. The Chachamim say that just like for truma, it only goes one step. So too for kodesh, it only goes one step. It doesn't go further. So what Rabbi Yochanan is saying like this. Probably, Rabbi Yochanan is making an assumption. We're going to see it's more than an assumption. But it seems that right now there's an assumption that Rabbi Yossi probably holds like the Chachamim, that Tful Yaim can only make a shlishi for truma and for kodesh, and that's where it stops. If that's the case. So, what was our kal v'chaim? Someone that does not invalid. Someone that needs to bring his sacrifice in order to eat it. In order to eat from a sacrifice, needs to bring a sacrifice. So he does not contaminate truma, but nevertheless he would contaminate a sacrifice if he didn't bring a sacrifice yet. He's mechusar kippur, he's lacking the sacrifice. Before that, if he touches a sacrifice, he would contaminate it. So if that's the case,
he can't be tameh if it's carbon.
he's not tameh. He was tameh. He went to the mikvah already. The last part of his purification is to bring the sacrifice on the following day. He didn't do that yet. So if that's the case, while we're waiting for him to do that, he contaminates a sacrifice.
Just after he went to the mikvah.
Even after the mikvah, because he is waiting for. It's not supposed to come in contact with that level of holiness until he brings the sacrifice.
He made a pledge to. He would have to consecrate that.
Yeah, he has to consecrate. If he comes in contact with the sacrifice before he does his own sacrifice, that would be problematic. That would contaminate, invalidate it. So if that's the case. So we compare that to a shlishi for truma. Shlishi for truma, which is invalidated. Truma is invalidated. So if the mechusar kippurim doesn't invalidate truma, but invalidates a sacrifice, so a shlishi for truma, which is invalidated, for sure should invalidate a sacrifice, which is a revi. So he says, 1 second, a tful yaim invalidates truma, and it doesn't go any further.
But this is like almost resetting the tumor again. He's come in contact with another corpse or something.
No. We're talking about he's at Tful. He went to the mikveh. He's just waiting for nightfall. If he contacts Tumah, according to the Rabbanon, if he contacts not Tumah, contacts Truma, the grain that's supposed to Truma, the grain that he's supposed to be giving to the Kayan, so that would contaminate it. That would invalidate it, but it will not go any further. So if that's the case, what we're saying is like this: the Kal V'Chomer showed us that anything that would invalidate truma for sure would invalidate kodesh. It turns out that by the Tful Yaim, it's not so. So that messes up the Kal V'Chomer.
But he didn't become impure between the time when he went to the mikvah and
it's the same.
He's given his carbon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But nevertheless.
Stay in quarantine. Should have seen.
Uh-huh. Okay. The Gemara asks, this whole concept that you just came out with was only according to the Chachamim. The Chachamim say that truma becomes invalidated. In Kodesh, and the truma that touches Kodesh would not invalidate it. In other words, the shlishi does not make a revi by the Tful Yaim.
Truma would become tameh. I'm not really sure
what's going on is like this. Okay, we started off what we're looking for here is how do we know that there's a fourth level of impurity by a sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
So we got it from a Kal V'Chomer. It says if there's a certain individual that can invalidate the sacrifice, but he can't invalidate truma.
No,
So something that can invalidate truma should be able to invalidate the sacrifice.
Okay.
Now, saying invalidate, I mean to contaminate in a way that it becomes that it becomes. Okay. That was the Kalvachimer, and then we see, so therefore a Shlishi for Truma, which is invalidated Truma, right? For sure should be able to invalidate the sacrifice because we said things that that aren't even a problem for Truma invalidate the sacrifice. So we said 1 second, we have something that invalidates Truma, but that will not continue on to invalidate a sacrifice, and that's a Tful Yom. According to the Rabbanan, Tful Yom invalidates Truma, and that's it. That Truma cannot continue to invalidate a sacrifice.
Tful Yom is
Someone that has gone to the mikveh, but has not. That's Mechusar Kippurim. Went to the mikveh. Mechusar Kippurim is someone who went to the mikveh but didn't bring a sacrifice. Tful Yom is someone that went to the mikveh and was waiting for nightfall.
So he would give his carbon, and his carbon would be fine.
Yeah.
Right. But the truma, you're saying he still can't.
Before nightfall, he can't eat the truma, and if he touches truma, so it invalidates it. If that truma touches kodesh, according to the Rabbanan, nothing happens.
But with the carbon, he's still waiting.
So the carbon is still waiting a day. If he comes direct, he has to wait a day.
So you could compare both truma and the carbon together because you're still waiting a day.
Right.
You're waiting after.
Right.
Well, with the carbon.
Well, originally,
following day,
right.
and truma, you're waiting until after nightfall.
Right. We're talking about the invalidating one to invalidate the other.
Oh.
So, what Rabbi Yochanan is asking on Rabbi Yossi is, I don't get Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'Chaimer. I have a problem with the Kal V'Chaimer. A Tful Yom is the problem with the Kal V'Chaimer. The Tful Yom teaches me that not everything that invalidates Truma automatically is going to continue and invalidate Kodesh. Whoa. Okay. So, Maskefler of Papa. Rav Papa has a question on Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Papa probably never saw Rabbi Yochanan, but he has a question on Rabbi Yochanan. Mimai Rabbi Yossi Karabanan Svirale says, I don't get Rabbi Yochanan's problem.
Professor.
There was an assumption here. The whole problem was based on an assumption. The assumption is that Rabbi Yossi would follow the opinion of the Rabbanan. Says, how do you know Rabbi Yossi is following the opinion of the Rabbanan? You create an assumption, and then you ask a question based on that assumption. Maybe Dilma Kabashal really. Maybe it was like Abashal. Rav Abashal said that was the first opinion of this price. The Amar, he said that a Tful Yom, someone that went to the mikveh and is waiting for nightfall, the Tful Yom, L'tamish naim l'flechet. Tful Yom is considered a rishon. He can touch a sheni. The sheni touches the shlishi. The shlishi can make a revi. Says. Maybe he'll take Abashal, which that would the Kal V'Chaimer is back on. The Gemara says no. It can't be that Rabbi Yossi is following Abashal. What the Gemara is going to say is that if Rabbi Yossi was following Abashal, then Rabbi Yossi would have had a different Kal V'Chaimer, an even better Kal V'Chaimer. The fact that he didn't have that Kal V'Chaimer tells me that he was really following the Rabbanan. How does it go? It says Isal Kadaitach Kabashal Svirle. If Rabbi Yossi would actually be following Abashal that held that a Tful Yom is a Rishon, is the first level of impurity. What he touches becomes a second. What that second touches becomes a third. What that third touches becomes a fourth. And for sacrifice, if that's the case, Leisei l'Revi b'Kodesh me'oichel shebamachmas Tful Yom. Then he could have brought the Kal V'Chaimer from the Tful Yom. Why do you need the Kal V'Chaimer from Mechusar Kippurim? It would have gone like this. When it comes to food that's touched by a Tful Yom, the Tful Yom gufei muter b'chulin. The Kal V'Chaimer is so much stronger. Someone that went to the mikveh, lacking his sacrifice. Someone that goes to the mikveh and is waiting for nightfall. Is he allowed to go and eat an apple or an orange or anything? The regular thing from Publix, 100%. He's perfectly pure for that. So when it comes to chulin, there's absolutely no problem with the Tful Yom. But nevertheless, when it comes to truma, there is a problem. Amret, and nevertheless you say, Oisirvi b'Kodesh. He will not only make truma, but he'll make even a fourth level by Kodesh for a sacrifice. He'll make it into a fourth level. So Oichel Shlishi, when you have a third level, if a Tful Yom can create a fourth level, so Eichel Shlishi, something that's tamei because of it's a level of a Shlishi. Abamach Masheni, the Sheni Gufei Yasser B'chulin. How did it become a Shlishi? Because it touched the Sheni. The Sheni could have been Chulin. So in the Dinshi Yasser V'Bakaydish for sure should make. See the Tful Yom, what he touches, the first thing that he touches, which could be like considered a Sheni, is nothing for chulin, and nevertheless it creates a revi. So something that creates a sheni for chulin for sure should be able to create a revi for kodesh. So Rabbi Yossi's kal v'chomer could have been much better. Instead of a kal v'chomer from truma to kodesh, the mechusik kippurim kal v'chomer, that someone that's lacking a sacrifice is allowed to eat truma. He doesn't contaminate truma, but nevertheless he contaminates kodesh. So a shlishi, which is contaminated truma, for sure should contaminate kodesh. That was Rabbi Yossi's kal v'chomer. It comes along Rabbi Yochanan and says he should have had a better kal v'chomer if he would have gone according to Abba Shal. Kal v'chomer would have gone like this: that it's full yaim, that even what he touches doesn't contaminate chulin. Even if he touches chulin directly, it doesn't contaminate chulin. So, and if he touches something that could continue to a fourth level for kodesh, so for sure a shlishi, which was touched by a sheni, which is contaminated for chulin, for sure should be able to contaminate kodesh at a fourth level. So
Why are they arguing which kal v'chomer is better?
Oh.
Both work.
If there's
well,
no internet,
the reason
then
is like this.
nothing to
The
do.
reason why they're arguing about which kal v'chomer would have been better is because Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Yossi's kal v'chomer has a problem. And they said, well, maybe we can fix the problem by saying he goes like the other opinion. Rabbi Yochanan says if he would have gone like the other opinion, then he would have said a different kal v'chomer. It must be he doesn't go like that opinion. He goes like the Rabbanan. The fact that he goes like the Rabbanan, that now, once he's like the Rabbanan, now he has a problem with this kal v'chomer. Because according to
So
the
he's trying
Rabbanan,
to
there's no
invalidate.
advantage over by a tfil yom. There's no advantage in kodesh over truma. So we say, well, maybe the reason why he didn't want to say that kal v'chomer of tfil yom, which according to Rabbi Yochanan would have been the better kal v'chomer that he should have said. Maybe he has a special reason why he didn't want to say that. And so what's that reason? And if you'll say mishum dikkel miprach, because you could ask a question on that kal v'chomer. Mala tfil yom shekein avatuma. The fact that the tful yaim can contaminate kodesh, contaminate a sacrifice, or invalidate that sacrifice at a fourth degree, that's because the tful yaim is considered an avatuma. So maybe there's another variable there, and that's why that's not a good kal v'chomer, and that's why this is something that touched the shlishi or whatever you want to say that should also make it. That's not an avatuma. That's an offspring of tumah. It says 1 second. But his kal v'chomer itself, you could ask the same question, and you did not ask that question, which means that question where it started from, that it started from an avatuma, the tfil yom is considered an avatuma. That was not a question that Rabbi Yochanan, that bothered Rabbi Yochanan, and if that's the case, then we don't have any problem with that kal v'chomer. So why didn't he say it? It's because he doesn't hold of Abba Shal, he holds only of the Rabbanan. We're left off here with Rabbi Yochanan's question on Rabbi Yossi that he doesn't understand the kal v'chomer. Okay. Now the Gemara gets a little bit easier. Amar Rabasi, Amar Rav, V'amrila, Amar Rabba Bar Isi, Amar Rav. Okay. This is not-
Rabbi Smith, before we go on, as I recall, a couple dafim ago, we got into this whole business because of the 3 times Natame
Right.
is used with respect to the Sota. Right, and one of the 3, the third one was Truma. But I guess I'm still confused as to how that relates back to the Sota.
So
The last
there's one other detail here. That is that we started to say the different statements that were made by Bayim on the day that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was instated as the head of the
That's right.
one of those statements was that any klicheres, any earthenware vessel that something falls into it, it can contaminate something else. A shlishi can make a sheni can make a shlishi.
I forgot that. We got into this through Edyot. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
a sheni can make a shlishi even for chulin. That's what we said.
Is there any relationship back to the Sota from what we've been
I don't
talking
think.
about?
I mean, not directly. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What the Gemara is about to do is called shita. it makes an opinion, it makes a bunch of rabbis that all made different statements. It says they all hold the same thing. And we have rules in other places that ein halacha kashita, when a sage comes along and says, this rabbi and that rabbi and this rabbi and that rabbi all say the same thing. The halacha is not like that. There's a rule somewhere in Shas, ein halacha kashita. But it's not so common that it's to be Rav that's doing this. It's a lot of times it's Abaya that does this. Abaya, it's very common for him to say that this one and that one and this one. He like collects them all together, and then once he does that, then we have to go through Bryce saying which one was he referring to. He's referring to this statement of this sage and this statement of that sage. It goes like this. He says, Rab Meir, Rab Yosi, Rab Yeshua, Rab Elazar, Rabbi Eliezer, that's 5 sages. Kulus Sfirlu, all of them hold the Ein Sheni Shlishi B'chula, that the second degree of impurity cannot continue to a third degree of impurity if it's regular mundane food. It stops at the Sheni. That's it. Okay.
Normally we say this, like,
Even the interesting thing is that we say not. So here, like, what does it mean? Ein halacha kashita by this Gemara? I don't know, because normally we say we accept this. Let's take a look. What is the opinion of Reb Meir? Reb Meir was number 1. Reb Meir the Tanan was taught in a Mishnah. Kol aton biyasmayim.
She's only in Truma.
This is only Truma. Yeah. Kol aton biyasmayim midivrei sefer metam yasakaydesh upaisel asa Truma v'muta b'chulin ub'maisa divrei Reb Meir v'cham ma'isrim b'maisa. The rule is like this. Any person that needs to go to the mikveh because of a rabbinic enactment, for example, why would someone need to go to the mikveh because he's tamei midrabanan? What would that be? So there's 2 examples that are brought here. One is, let's say, someone went reishe v'rubai and mayim shuvim. He went into a bathtub, not into a mikveh. Water that's drawn water. Now, even though the drawn water it's not tamei, but nevertheless, there was some sort of decree that we don't want people to mix up a mikveh with drawn water that went in through a vessel, mayim shuvim. So we say that someone that goes into mayim shuvim actually becomes tamei rabbinically, and he has to go to a mikveh. So what's the rule over there is that if someone did not go to the mikveh, he went in mayim shuvim. So what happens if he touches food? So he can contaminate holy food. He can invalidate truma. But however, when it comes to chulin or meiser, it's nothing. Which means that he's considered like a sheni. And when it comes to a sheni of chulin, the sheni never makes a shlishi of chulin. That's what we're learning from Reb Meir. That this person is considered a sheni. There's one more example of what he did. Could be that he ate on a.
Thank you, now. Have a good Shabbos.
Oh, take care, Moshe.
Okay, fine. Okay, good Shabbos. Safe flight. Okay. The other example here is if someone eats contaminated food. So food does not contaminate a person. The person becomes tummy from a sheret. It's not from food. The person contaminates food. Food doesn't contaminate the person. That's how it works. However, there's a rule that if he eats a certain amount of tummy food, we consider him tummy as well. Now, how tummy do we consider him? Only rabbinically tummy, but we consider him a sheni. That means that if he touches chulin, nothing happens.
But
So this is Reb Meir's ruling.
If Tame, the master of the original Tame,
The Av.
yeah, the Av, right? If that makes the second category Tame,
The Av
following,
makes
then
the
why
Av.
does it make a person?
So the Av. Yeah, let's go like this. Let's say here's the Tama, right? Let me use your thing, trophies.
That's why I brought them on you.
Okay. So I have 3 levels
Put 'em
here.
in the mikveh. Yeah.
You see this? Okay, so this is the Av, all right? That's the Avatama. If this touches this, it becomes a Rishon. This becomes a Sheni. Now what happens now is that whatever it touches over here is not going to contaminate, but for Chulin. For chulin.
For
So-
chulin it does, or, oh, just for
Yeah.
chulin.
So for chulin.
Yeah.
So now there's a fellow that needs to go to the mikveh because of some rabbinic law. We put him at this level right here. And that means that he can't contaminate any chulin. But it could continue going on for truma and kaidesh. So
Right.
this guy that ate, he ate impure foods. He ate a loaf of bread of impure food. So he needs to use the mikveh, but he's only at the second degree of impurity.
So this one ate impure food as he was coming?
No, he wasn't tummy.
Oh.
He just ate impure food. He ate food that was tummy. Now, food normally doesn't make a person tummy. This level makes a person tummy. This level is contaminating food. In others, a person tummy is only usually right here.
Mhm.
It's only that first level.
Right.
No, impure food is kosher food that came in contact with something that's impure. Yeah.
So don't we say that with someone who eats food that's not kosher, it affects his body?
Yeah.
And again, spiritually, but this tumor is also spiritual.
Yeah, but
So why
it's
is
a
it we have
different.
the separation of that type of food changes you, but not this type of food?
Right, right.
Ain't gonna get it. Your medicine.
Second, let me. Okay. You know, in
Right now, it's shady.
in the electromagnetic spectrum, there's a lot of different frequencies, right? So you say, how come I can't pick up the microwave with my cell phone? You know what I'm saying? It's like there's different levels of impurity. The one that's not kosher, one is, it's not all the same. Okay, so we got the number one. We have another 4 to go. Chachamim Meiser b'Meiser. The Chachamim say that Meiser is different. That Meiser is going to be a problem, even though the person is a sheni, and really for chulin, Meiser is not really considered kaidesh, but talking about Meiser sheni, that's a confusing name. The Meiser that's brought to Yerushalayim. Okay,
That's the produce,
whatever the
right?
case is, I'm sorry.
The produce, right?
The produce is brought to Yerushalayim. So now the truth is that for chulin, the Chachamim agreed to Reb Meir that there is no such thing as a shlishi, as a third degree. So why did the sage over here that's quoting the other sages, Rav? Why did Rav not say the Chachamim? Why does he only say Reb Meir? So Rashi mentions, he says that he could have said the Chachamim also, but we don't have a distinct name for who the Chachamim are. It's just general sages. So it said Reb Meir because his name we know. Okay. Rabbi Yossi had the Amran. Rabbi Yossi, we already said that Rabbi Yossi holds that chulin cannot become a shlishi. It stops at a sheni. How did we say that? Did we really say that? We said the imi say because if he would say that it could reach a shlishi, leisei l'revi b'truma v'chamishi b'kodesh, then we would be able to continue according to that kal v'chaimer that we were making. That really, if there was a shlishi, then it would continue on to be a revi for truma and a chamishi for kodesh, because we would go level by level. Because
Level is higher.
each one is higher.
One, the Truma.
Truma was the shlishi was min hatayra, and then the revi would be from the kal v'chaimer. Okay, that was Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yeshua, how do we know that Rabbi Yeshua agrees also that there's no shlishi for chulin? There's no third degree by chulin. The Tanan was taught in a Mishnah. Rabbi Lezer Eimer, ha'oichel rishon is a rishon. If someone eats impure food, what degree does that make him? So if the impure food was a rishon, then he becomes a rishon. Let's say the impure food was a sheni, so he becomes a sheni. Let's say the impure. Yeah, you are what you eat. If the impure food was a shlishi, becomes a shlishi. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, Rabbi Yeshua is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, the student of Rabbi Yechim ben Zakkai. He's arguing with Rabbi Eliezer, who's his friend, the other student. Rabbi Yeshua says that if someone eats a first degree, or if he eats a second degree, he becomes a second degree. In other words, the first degree does not become a first degree. They both become a second degree. Whether he eats a first degree or a second degree, becomes a second degree. Shlishi, let's say he eats a third degree. That would have to be for Truma. So it becomes a Sheni B'Kodesh. He's considered like a Sheni for Kodesh. Vein Sheni B'Truma, but he's not considered a Sheni for Truma. That means he won't contaminate Truma. So because of the severity of Kodesh, we take him back a level. We take him back a level that he can contaminate one more thing.
That sounds pretty revolutionary.
Yeah.
We have that in other cases. We have that.
This is Midoraisa.
No, this is not Midaraisa.
Are we talking about Midoraisa?
This is no. We're all with all of these things are Midarabanan. All the Tumas here are Midarabanan. So, what are we seeing here according to Rabbi Yeshua?
When you say Kal V'Chomer,
Oh.
that's a Kal V'Chomer from the Torah or Kal V'Chomer?
Back in that, in Rabbi Yossi's case, there was a Kal V'Chomer from the Torah would be considered real Kal V'Chomer.
So that's
Yeah.
Midoraisa.
Yeah, that's what it
That
seems.
would make it Midoraisa.
Yeah, that was actually contact. Here we're talking about someone that's eating food. Food doesn't contaminate the person midaraisa, so it's only a rabbinic contamination. So,
What do you say? You are
but
what
one
you
second.
eat. You are what you eat.
You are what you eat. That was Rabbi Eliezer's view. You are what you eat. Rabbi Yeshua says you are not what you eat.
One level more common than what
You're not what you eat.
That is.
So
Shame.
there's something else with the hands, with mashkin. Mashkin go back to the tchila. The liquids go back to be a first one. It happens in some. Okay. Now this statement continues on a little bit to explain what we were talking about. What was the shlishi? We said b'chulin shenasu al taras truma. Why? How did you get a shlishi? Said we're talking about chulin that was being kept sanctified, not sanctified, being kept pure at the level of truma. There's this concept like this that have truma, that's the actual food that was separated to be given to the kayan. And then I have food that's being kept at the level of truma with the degree of purity of truma. It's called chulin shenasu al taras truma, because I'm going to need to separate truma. I'm going to need to keep it at that level. So people that were involved with truma would keep all their food like that, so they don't mix up.
Sounds like shmura matzah.
Like, right.
Once before Pesach.
Yeah,
You
like
keep it at the level of shmura matzah because it comes Pesach. Otherwise,
right.
Whoa.
So that's called chulin shenasu al taras truma.
Smart.
So the Gemara explains like this: al taras truma in, al taras kodesh loy. Now there's two versions to this Gemara. One version was a lot easier than the version that we have. It says the other version says like this: b'chulin shenasu al taras truma in, but al taras chulin loy. In chulin grady loy. That's what the other version is. Rashi quotes this version, but he says, "Don't worry about it if you have that other version." See, what we're saying is like this: how did you get a shlishi? He said, "Oh, that was a special type of chulin. That was chulin shenasu al taras truma," which means that there's no such thing as chulin. That's a shlishi. You had to say that it was a special chulin to be able to get a third degree. How does it fit with our Gemara? Our Gemara says that for the mundane food, that's al taras truma, but al taras kodesh, mundane food that's kept to a level of a sacrifice, that's not. So Rashi explains that since there's no such thing as keeping mundane food to a level of a sacrifice, we just think that's like a mistake because mundane food cannot be a sacrifice. So therefore, we just say that it's regular chulin. So therefore, regular mundane food, regular chulin, doesn't have a problem of a third degree. Basically, whatever girsa you have, you come out, your answer comes out being that it's regular mundane food, doesn't have a third degree. Okay. Alma ein sheni yoseh shlishi b'chulin. We see that there's no such thing as a second degree making a third degree by chulin. That was Rabbi Yeshua. No, that was Rabbi Yeshua. So now we're up to the fourth opinion. Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar the Tanya. Rabbi Lazar, as it was taught in a brisa. Rabbi Lazar says, Shlashtan Shavin. The following three are exactly the same. Rishon Sheba Kodesh, Sheba Chulim, and Sheba Truma. This is very important. When we're talking about that the impurity can spread from one thing to the next. It can go from a first degree to a second degree to a third degree for Truma and to a fourth degree for Kodesh. What was the first degree that we're talking about? What was it? Was it Kodesh? Was it Truma? Was it Chulin? Rabbi Elazar says it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The first degree could have been any of those. It's a contaminated item of food, and it doesn't matter if that food was Chulin, Truma, or Kodesh. It's only going to matter when you get to the third degree or the fourth degree. So Shlashtan Shavin, all three, when it comes to the first degree, Harishon, Sheba Kodesh, Sheba Chulin, Sheba Truma, that's all the same. What happens is Mitame Shnayim Upaisel Echad B'Kodesh. If we're dealing with following that with Kodesh, then we could have 2 degrees of impurity and 1 degree of invalidity. That means it makes a second and a third impure, and it makes the fourth invalid. It contaminates 1 and invalidates 1 for Truma. That means we're dealing with the first degree. It can make a second degree Tameh, and it can make a third degree invalid. And it only invalidates 1 degree for Chulin, which means it only goes to a Sheni. Okay, so that's our fourth rabbi, our fourth sage that says that there's no such thing as the third degree by mundane food. We go to our last stage, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer Ditnan. Rabbi Eliezer, as it says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer mechala nitelas min hatayra al hatmeya. Okay, what happened over here is like this. Challah is not the loaf that you make for Shabbos, the braided. Challah is what you separate from and give to the Kohen. That's the.
Is that why we call it challah now?
I don't know why we call it challah now. Just to confuse us. So. How do they spell it then? That's because that book, all of their thing, it's an H with a dot on top or something, right?
A dot on the bottom.
A dot on the bottom, yeah. That's their, okay. Yeah. Okay. If dough becomes tameh, then you have a difficulty taking challah off it, because challah is not allowed to be tameh. So normally the amount of challah that you're supposed to take for a regular homeowner is 1 out of 24 parts. That's not for a baker. A baker is 1 out of 48. But for regular homeowner, it's 1 out of 24. If the dough became tummy, you still have to separate the challah. But they tell you don't do 1 out of 24, do 1 out of 48. That's the first opinion set. At least you don't waste that amount, because no one's going to be able to eat it. Comes along this opinion because challah cannot be contaminated. Challah is like truma. Somehow the dough became contaminated by someone that was contaminated, touched the dough. So you don't want to waste it. Well, now it says, Rabbi Eliezer says, challah nitelas min hatayra al hatmeya. I have another way out. What you can do is you make a new dough that's tahar. You bring them close together, and you separate from the new dough that's tar for the old dough. The only problem is that it's a halacha that the doughs need to touch. Now you have a problem. If they're going to touch, challah is considered like truma. It's a problem. It's going to become tameh. It's going to touch, right? Even if it's a sheni, it's going to make it into a shlishi. It's going to contaminate. So what he says is you take a third piece of dough, you put it in the center. You let the contaminated dough touch the bridge dough, and the bridge touches the other dough that you're going to take challah from. Okay, so it goes like this. Kate said, how do you do this? You have two doughs, one's pure and one's impure. You put a less than a size of an egg in the center so that it doesn't contaminate, because less than the size of an egg cannot impart tumah. So less than a kabeya, less than the size of an egg. So it doesn't impart tumah. So that even if it's going to become tameh, but it can't give off tumah to the next one because it's too small. So that bridge is very small. Chachamim say that it's a problem. Doesn't explain over here why, but Vitanya, and it was taught in the Brisa, kabeya, that it can actually be the size of an egg. Can actually be the size of an egg, and it's not going to be a problem, according to Rabbi Elazar. This is Rabbi Eliezer. Savrua, the understanding of this, what the yeshiva understood was we're talking about that the original contaminated dough was a first degree. And dough that's considered chulin, because you're using it for challah, is not considered challah. It's regular chulin. So my lab and the argument between Rabbi Elazar and the sages would go as follows. Mar Sava Rabbi Elazar holds Eina Sheni Yosef Shlishi B'chulin. See, first degree tumah touches the second degree. It doesn't continue to the third degree. That's why Rabbi Elazar holds that it could even be the size of an egg. We're still not worried because it won't contaminate it, even though it's being kept to a degree of holiness for challah to be removed. But the fact is, it's not challah. However, the sages held that it is a problem. So, okay, we have our fifth level. Now, Amar Rav Mari, Breder of Kana, he says like this, no. The Kuli Alma ain't Sheni Yosef Shlishi B'chulin. Even the Chachamim hold that it's not a problem. The machlekes over here is, what if you're keeping the mundane food to the level of challah? Is that considered that it still has the laws of challah because you're making it as if it's challah? One says yes, one says no. Rabbi Elazar says no. If you want, we can have another shot. Everyone holds that it's not considered challah. So why are the sages strict? And there's no reason why it should become tamei either, because a sheni doesn't make a shlishi. Even the sages agree that. The question is, are you allowed to cause tumah to chulin in the land of Israel? Because in the land of Israel, we try to keep it whole. Rabbi Eliezer holds that you're allowed to use that bridge, even though it's going to become tummy. Another one says that you're not allowed to use that bridge because we don't want to make anything tummy in Eretz Yisrael, even though it's chulin. Okay, have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Oh, there's something there?
At the two
One
dots.
more? Oh, I gotta wait 2 more days.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Okay. Shabbos.
Professor Clark.